Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Gaming Stooges Talks podcast. We are the Gaming Stooges.
I'm Jack.
You can call me Cloud.
And I'm Landon.
We hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and if you do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on Twitch, or joining our Discord. Let's get on with the show.
We're going to take you back to the past to talk about some aftermarket consoles. Some of them might suck ass.
You trying a poem now?
No, I was referencing the Angry Video Game Nerd. Hopefully, we don't get taken down for this. Don't add us.
I don't know what that is.
Anyway.
Damn.
So, today's episode is on aftermarket hardware. Just as a heads up, we are recording this on the 22nd of December, and this is not live. We've got some...
It is not.
This is going to be out a month after we've recorded this, so...
You were ruining the illusion.
I don't care about ruining the illusion.
I will...
Well, you didn't ruin the illusion.
I did.
Cloud ruined the illusion.
I mean, I was going to ruin the illusion by saying if I sound tired, it's because this was recorded in the heart of the Christmas season, and I'm very tired.
True. But we're going to talk about what is called aftermarket hardware, which gaming's been around for, as we know it, for about 45 years. I mentioned that at the beginning of another podcast. And because of that, some people, they don't always want to play the newest thing. They don't always want to get the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series S or X or the Nintendo Wii U Switch 7, whatever have you. Sometimes we just want to go back and play some classic games, and sometimes you might have an instance where you're discovering games that you haven't played on that older hardware. And that's where a bunch of these companies come in that we're going to talk about, and their products as well as some other stuff. Now, there's like a bunch of different little categories that this is going to entail. There's official stuff from like the actual like OEM like original manufacturers like Nintendo, Sega, Atari. They've all done this to some extent where they actually made like their own stuff long after the fact. A lot of the aftermarket hardware though you'll find are from third parties. Some of them were given like express permission from the OEM to make the system, and some of them are just kind of like allowed to do it in a way. It's kind of hard to explain. The laws,
well, like patenting rights for the specific hardware retires,
exactly.
So people are allowed to do it.
Right.
That's how Hyperkin's allowed to do the specifically they haven't done 64 for cartridge-based stuff, because while they were making the Retron 5 and previous iterations, the licensing rights for the 64 cartridge slot, basically, the patent for that hadn't expired.
Which might explain why another product we'll talk about is like one of the earliest instances of this happening. It's an upcoming product as of the recording of this episode. But first, let's talk about something that's a little easier to really understand, and that would be the original like manufacturer created stuff, such as we've got the NES Classic and SNES Classic. So Nintendo put out their own like versions of hardware with like Nintendo and Super Nintendo games on it. There was also the Genesis and Genesis 2 Mini from Sega themselves. Now Sega, unlike Nintendo or Sony, did have like an official like not really like from themselves, but they kind of like gave the explicit like okay to another company to make a version of the Genesis. A couple companies actually, when you think about it, but they actually like themselves made their own. And then Sony decided to make the PlayStation Classic, and we will probably try not to talk about that as much as possible.
You forgot also
Atari also had the Atari Flashback.
Oh, I was thinking Sega had they had the mini Game Gears.
Oh, they did. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
When did that come out?
No. Yes.
It was, so it's weird. But I mean, if you want, let's talk about that. They actually had like a bunch of different versions of it with different games on it, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, it was like different colors, and each color had a different like game or 2 games on it.
Right.
I'll pull it up.
Yeah, because I remember like these were like tiny, like almost keychain size versions of the system, and they were.
But were they Game Boy Micro sized?
Were they Game Boy Micro sized? They could have been actually about that size, maybe even smaller. But I'm looking it up right now as well because I forgot all about it, and oh yeah, those are definitely like Japan, the size of a micro.
Yeah, they're tiny. They released in 2020 in Japan. And then there was 4 games per color of console. Black had Sonic 1, Outrun, Puyo Puyo 2, Royal Stone. Blue has Sonic Chaos, Gunstar Heroes, Sylvain Tale, Baku Baku Animal. Yellow is your Shining Force one, because it has basically everything Shining Force that came out for the Game Gear. And Nazu Puyo Aruru no Ru. Yeah, I tried. And then red, that's a good one. Megami Tensei Gaiden, Revelations of the Demon Slayer, Columns, and Shinobi.
Interesting. So
yeah, so I don't know if I would say any one of these is a standout. I'd probably say black and red are like for like the more general audiences. Yellow is very specific, and blue has Sonic Chaos, so it is the least desirable of them all.
Hey. I take offense to that.
I'm just saying, Sonic Chaos, out of all the Sonic games to get a Game Gear,
I was gonna say, I think that the black one is definitely like the kind of like the vanilla, hey, if you wanted, if you're just a general Sega gamer, this is the one that has like the biggest variety of like classic titles on it. I mean,
red does too, because it has Columns and Shinobi.
True.
Yeah, these things are tiny,
but
I mean, they're very small. For people who don't look it up themselves, it is, and I'm sorry for anyone that lives in America, but I have to say these in units of measurement that you probably haven't heard since elementary school.
Oh, goodness.
8 centimeters by 4.3 centimeters with a screen size of 2.9 centimeters.
That is tiny.
Is that diagonal?
I assume so, yeah.
Yeah, that should be the screen diagonal size.
You said 2.9 centimeters?
2.9 centimeters.
That is barely over an inch big.
That's awesome.
No. These are
insane.
These are little baby things. They're meant to be like on your little key, like a keychain. So they're not like a thing. They're more of a collectible item rather than a way to actually play these games.
And yet they have 4 games on them each.
I need a banana sitting next to it so I know exactly how large it is for scale.
What you were reading off of, does it have the price listing? What they went for at the time?
No, it does not.
Have you ever like tried to collect any of them yet, or is it like on your bucket list of things to collect? Because it is something that I was kind of interested in. It's just the fact that they only came out in Japan.
I feel like that was my barrier of entry, was these never came out outside of Japan. And I mean, they came out in 2020, so I think the world forgot about them because there was a lot of other things happening.
There was a lot of other bigger things happening at the time where the good old Sega Game Gear Mini kind of was an afterthought in people's heads.
It was October of 2020, so a lot of things had calmed down by then, let's be real. For anyone who remembers 2020, bless you. Yeah, Yeah. No, I like, from a collector standpoint, especially someone who's come to appreciate the Sega Game Gear later on in life, like, these would be really cool to own. I think if I remember right, they were going for, like, I want to say $100 USD each, if I remember right.
That's quite a bit. I was hoping it was more in the ballpark of, like, when you like consider conversion rates. I was hoping for like $40 or $50, not $100. That's so much just for one of them.
Oh, they were $50.
Okay.
They were 4,980 yen.
Okay.
At the time.
Yeah. So that's that's closer to. Actually, that's closer to like $40, if I'm not mistaken. It depends on how strong the yen was at the time. Because I don't know. I know that the yen is kind of weak at the moment, but like the yen at the time might have, back in 2020, it might have been a little bit better. But I think that's in the ballpark of like $40. Because
someone is selling the red one for $82.26 on Macari right now.
Cool.
Damn.
It's probably gone by the time anyone hears us talk about this, but
probably.
Yeah. Just wanted to note that.
Yeah. So they're like it looks like going rate is around $100. Like, from a snapshot, I'm seeing between 80 to 130.
Considering the lack of availability, that makes enough sense. All right.
Yeah.
So let's move to another piece of official hardware that Sega put out. So they gave us the Genesis and Genesis 2 minis across two different releases. You had the first one came out in 2019, and the second one came out in 2022. The first one is modeled after the original Sega Genesis release, so not the Model 2, the Model 1 that they released. So it's got like these little like switches and stuff on it. It's kind of cool. And I'm going to just rattle off the North American game list because they do have differences between regions. But
I hate that. I fucking hate that.
That's weird.
I don't care for it. I understand it, but I don't care for it. That said, on the one that we got came with Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, Alicia Dragoon, Altered Beast. Of course it would have Altered Beast. We were the only region that got it. That was also a launch title for the Genesis at the time, so makes sense. You got Beyond Oasis, Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse. That's a cool one. Castlevania Bloodlines. You had Columns, Comic Zone, Contra Hardcore, Core as CORPS.
Good title, honestly.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Darius, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Dynamite Heady.
Before you continue, I just think it's funny that Mean Bean was released on the North American / European one and the Asian one, like the Greater Asian release, but not the Japanese one.
Because they released a Puyo Puyo game on it instead, I'm pretty sure.
I know, but like I just think that's funny.
You had Dynamite Heady, Earthworm Jim, Echo the Dolphin, Eternal Champions. The last three I listed were all American EU only, rather. You had Ghouls and Ghosts, Golden Axe, Gunstar Heroes. That was actually in every region, all three of those. Kid Chameleon, Landstalker, The Treasures of King Noble. You had Light Crusader, which that was also only in our region. There was Mega Man The Wily Wars. I forgot about that one.
It's a weird one.
Yep, that's a good one, too. You had Monster World 4. You had Phantasy Star 4. That's how I first played that game, by the way.
Good.
There was Road Rash 2, Shining Force. For some reason, Shining Force 2 was only in non-Japanese Asian territories. Kind of weird. Just wanted to note that, though. You had... I lost my place for a second there. Okay. You had Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, Sonic... And here's the Sonic list. We got Spinball, Sonic 1, Sonic 2. That's it for this one. Just those three. Yeah, they're not as much as you might have expected. Space Harrier 2, Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition, Streets of Rage 2, Strider, Super Fantasy Zone, Tetris, of course, Thunder Force 3, Toe Jam and Earl, Vector Man, Virtua Fighter 2, Wonder Boy and Monster World, and World of Illusion, which was another Mickey game, Disney game. So a lot of games. Also, for some reason, the Japanese one had a Yu Yu Hakusho game on it.
It's a fighting game, it looks like.
I will say, I forgot that Mega Man The Wily Wars is on this one. And now I need to hook up my girlfriend's Genesis Mini to play that because I've never played it before. And she has it literally behind our TV.
Yeah, play it.
What was I gonna say?
What do you guys think of this roster of games, though? I think it's pretty good. Like, it's a diverse cast of games. It is weird that like you have like only small representatives from each series, but that said, there's still a lot there.
I will say this is a good collection, but any Genesis collection will always feel incomplete without Sonic 3 and Knuckles on it. And I get why. I'm forever thankful.
This was before
for Michael
Sonic
Jackson.
Origins, so
I know that I'm forever thankful for Michael Jackson's like musical contributions to Sonic 3 because those songs are fire. But I'm also pissed off because it means that they have a bastard of a time re-releasing the game.
Yeah, and I mean it is. We are still missing out on a lot of major things. Like there's, you have Phantasy Star 4, but you don't have Phantasy Star 2 or 3. You have...
Where the fuck is Michael Jackson's Moonwalker?
Yeah, there's no Michael Jackson's Moonwalker by extension because of the same, thing that we were talking about with Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
There's going to be a lot of like third-party stuff that's not represented.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm making a joke.
I know, but that is a major one, you'd think, right? So like... there's no Vector Man 2. There's only Vector Man 1. So like we could go on, but like there's a lot of stuff that you know what game would be really cool to have seen on this that we didn't get? And I haven't looked at the Genesis Mini 2's list yet, and I don't own one, so I'm actually going to be learning what the hell was on it to begin with. But it is a bit of a shame that Pulse Man, which was a hard game to actually like play in an official capacity, but is pretty well regarded, a game from Game Freak, by the way, was not on this collection.
Game Freak, famous for their hit video game Tempo the Badass Elephant.
Oh, I played that game.
You did?
I did. I won't say liked or disliked, but I definitely played that game.
Yeah. I do find that with something like the Genesis Mini, emulation quality and game selection are like two of the most important things. Now, some aftermarket hardware is not actually made in this way where the games are built in, but a lot of them for a really long time were, and the official ones that we will see are in fact of that variety where the games are built in. So the game selection really does matter. Unless, you're one of those people that hacks all the stuff you ever buy, but like most people, they're going to just go off of whatever's built in. So I would say this is a pretty good roster of games. I have been able to play with it a bunch. Jack, do you have one of these?
I do not.
You don't? What about you, Landon?
I don't. I honestly don't own any of these.
Okay.
I guess technically the only thing like of this variety I own is the Zelda Game & Watch, which we didn't really go over, but that is like...
That does count in a sense.
It is like that.
It is literally a Game & Watch.
It is.
Yeah.
And it has games pre-installed onto it. Released by an official...
We could talk more about those when we get to the Nintendo stuff, I think.
Yeah. But I remember selling these. So when we get to PlayStation... I have some words. Yeah. Because that was a funny launch.
Yeah, I really like the Genesis Mini for what it is. As I mentioned, I played quite a bit of games on it, some of them for the first time. So, like, if you're one of those people that's like a diehard classic Sega fan, I think it's like it was a really good deal when it came out. I don't know about now, but
I will say, I think the biggest issue why I didn't get it is I had started collecting like the physical retro games. I had picked up a Genesis, and also like I owned a Retron 5. And I had like most of the games on this list that I want, I own. So it was like, well, I don't need this.
yeah.
So it's not for me, but like it's really cool for collectors who love the Genesis. I just was not the specific target audience, but it was a really good library. I do agree with that for as spread out as it is.
Really good quality of emulation too. Like when I was playing it, I have to say, like, you're using the the controller that comes with it, which is literally like they did it brand new versions of their old Genesis controller. It is the original one that only has the 3 buttons, but it works just fine. It feels really good. The emulation's really accurate. Like the games look and play incredible. So like if there's like a specific way you're trying to play them, this is a good one. There are the main thing about these, and I'll list off the Genesis 2 minis library in a moment, is that Sega does this a lot where they just throw collections out there. So if you're not a stickler for a specific like quality level and you're just trying to play a lot of Sega games, there's like a million different ways to do that. Yeah. So like this is only one specific way. That said, the Genesis Mini 2 for our region came with Afterburner 2, Alien Soldier, Atomic Runner Chelnov, don't know that game, Bonanza Brothers, Clay Fighter, Crusader of Senti, that's a good one, Desert Strike, Return of the Gulf, Deviant P, Earthworm Jim 2, Echo the Dolphin again, Echo the Tides of Time, Elemental Master, Fantasy Zone, Fatal Fury 2, Fatal Fight CD. There are some Sega CD games on here, by the way. Oh, this is the Sega CD version of Echo the Dolphin. That's why they did it again. Gain Ground, Golden Axe 2, Granada. Hopefully I'm pronouncing these right, by the way. Hellfire, Herzog Zwei, Mansion of Hidden Souls, Midnight Resistance, Night Striker, Night Trap, The Ninja Warriors, The Ooze, Outrun, Outrunners, Phantasy Star 2, so that's how we got Phantasy Star 2 on that. Populous, Rainbow Islands Extra, Ranger X, The Revenge of Shinobi, Ristar. We finally got Ristar. That's a big omission from the first one, by the way. So
honestly, yeah.
So that's good that they finally did that on the second one. Robo Aleste, Rolling Thunder 2, Sewer Shark, Shadow Dancer, The Secret of Shinobi, Shining Force CD. Notably, the original Shin Megami Tensei would be released on the Japanese version of this, by the way.
So fucking nettled.
Yep. Shining Force 2, Shining in the Darkness, Sylphied, Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic CD, Space Harrier 2, Spatter, Splatterhouse 2, Star Mobile, Streets of Rage 3, Super Hang-On, Super Locomotive, Super Street Fighter 2, The New Challengers. That's a different version of Street Fighter 2. Thunder Force 4, ToeJam and Earl and Panic on Funkatron. Truxtron, or Truxton, not Truxtron. Vector Man 2, Viewpoint, Virtua Racing versus Puyo Puyo Sun. Actually released in North America version of this as well. So that's interesting. And Warsong. So it's a bit more of a niche pick selection of games, but you do have a few really big standout titles, especially stuff that wasn't on the first Genesis Mini. So if you're a big Sega fan, it's worth getting both.
They need to do a third one that features 32X games, but still not do Sonic 3 or Sonic 3 or Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah,
just omit both of those.
In fact, Knuckles Chaotix will be there, but
yes.
We will still not. It will be Sonic 3 and Knuckles will be the only Sonic game from that whole era that is not on this system.
Would you be more mad if they just did Sonic and Knuckles?
I think I would be more mad if they just did Sonic and Knuckles, honestly. Because I hate that shit. Like, why would you just include Sonic and Knuckles? This is the second half of the video game.
I love that shit. I want that. I want a Sega Mini 3 if it only has Sonic and Knuckles.
Right. So,
I think if you own both, you have, like, you've covered almost any base you can, really.
Except for Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Well, yeah, but move that asterisk aside. Let's not worry about what we can't worry about. But, like, if you own both, like, you do have a really good, like, collection of what's available for the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD. Are there going to be standout releases on both that you're just not going to have access to? Sure. But, like, this has a lot of the heavy hitters that most people look for anyway. So
right. And, again, some of the best quality of emulation for playing these games. So if you're trying to play the games accurately, looking nice, sounding nice, and just playing like how you remember them, like these are really good versions for that. You could also do that with NSO if you have that, because those are really good versions of those games. But
true.
I mean, I will say they're better than most of the Genesis collections that they put out, because depending on which one it is, there might be some input lag involved and stuff like that. I know that for some people that's kind of a big deal. So if these are really good versions. Landon alluded to the Sony offering something called the PlayStation Classic, because they wanted in on this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo started this whole craze, I feel like.
They did.
Making it, like, profitable, showing that, like, people wanted this stuff. And so Sony went, let me copy your homework. And Nintendo went, no. And Sony went,
just like every time Sony does something involving video games?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they said,
copy Nintendo's homework.
They said, we're going to do it anyway. And they did a really bad job of it.
Because they were trying to copy it from across the room with binoculars.
Exactly.
And the binoculars had, like, funny shit in front of it.
They were holding the binoculars backwards.
Yeah.
So
they were like,
I will list off the games that came out in the North America, PAL, Korea, and SEA regions. So basically, like, the major thing is, like, not Japanese or Taiwan or Hong Kong. And then we'll talk about why this is not a good example of good aftermarket hardware. But first, let's talk about the games. So the games, we had Battle Arena Toshinden in only the PAL version. All right, I got to skip the PAL for only stuff because they list that separately. So we had Final Fantasy VII. Okay. You had Intelligent Cube. You had actually...
yes.
Actually, you know what?
Intelligent Cube.
Hold on.
My favorite video game.
Let me...
What is Intelligent Cube?
Okay, no. So Battle Arena Toshinden is in the North American version. So a lot of these we'll get into do not use the North American release of the game.
Correct.
So we have Battle Arena Toshinden, that was a PAL version. ROM. Cool Borders 2, same thing. Destruction Derby, same thing. You had Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto, PAL version. You had Intelligent Cube, you had Jumping Flash, PAL version. Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, PAL version. R4, Ridge Racer Type 4, Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cut, PAL version. You had Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Siphon Filter, Tekken 3, PAL version, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, PAL version, Twisted Metal, and Wild Arms. So, like, half the games are PAL versions. So here's why this collection is not good. There's some very glaring omissions from the PlayStation Classic, and half of the games are the 50 FPS versions of the games, because that's how PAL games worked back in the day.
Yeah, who needs that extra 10 frames? Like, okay. I'm not trying to be like a frame rate snob, but like...
It's a big deal for this specifically.
But like, I mean, yeah. I mean, especially when, like, the American versions of these games run at 60. But, like, 50 is just such a weird middle ground that's not quite 30 and not quite 60, and it just looks strange.
And for some of these games, there's, like, no reason it should be the PAL version. Why did they go with the PAL version of Resident Evil Director's Cut? Why did they give us the PAL version? Here's the thing. Why did they give us the PAL version of Tekken, a fighting game? Why would you do that?
I don't know.
And here's the best part about... Here's one of the best parts about this bundle. It doesn't come with a DualShock. It uses the not DualShock controller.
The one without the sticks.
Now, I guess that's okay in the sense that a lot of these games were released without DualShock being made with it in mind, because a lot of these came out either before the DualShock or were being developed before the DualShock, or just in some way they weren't required. But that's another thing. That's another reason why this is such a weird product, because by not using the DualShock as the controller, you miss out on so many other games that could have been on here, like Ape Escape, and basically any game that could utilize the right stick for like camera control at the time or stuff like that. Also, there's no Crash Bandicoot or Spyro.
There's no Crash Bandicoot. There's no Spyro.
So here's like a list of things that are just not there: Wipeout, Crash, Spyro, Tony Hawk, Tomb Raider.
Parappa the Rapper. Tony Hawk I can understand, because you get into a whole licensing nightmare when it comes to the music, and if they did decide to include it and not include the original soundtrack, people would just throw a fit.
Fair.
Yeah, but I'm just saying these are popular games for the PlayStation.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Klonoa, Gran Turismo, Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
How is there Gran Turismo? Literally one of the system sellers. What?
Yeah. So, Gran Turismo, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which is
that's
insane.
Baffling. That's baffling.
Yeah, no, that one is truly like, what the fuck are they doing by not including Symphony of the goddamn Night?
The Legend of Dragoon.
Yep.
Legacy of Kain. Medieval, and there's no Silent Hill.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
It is a baffling, like Sega with theirs, like, it feels like they did a shotgun blast. Here, Sony just like
was throwing darts at a dartboard, and they were blindfolded and also drunk.
They missed like 90% of the darts they threw.
Like their best dart throw was like still halfway away from the bullseye. Like
Their best dart throw is where they hit the globe that was hit off to the side, and it landed on Europe.
Like,
genuinely, like, the only, like, actually strong, like, no-brainer inclusion on the entire collection, I would say, is Metal Gear Solid.
I mean, Final Fantasy VII as well. And
too.
Both of those were actually the North American versions. So, those two are, like, the big ones.
Like, and, like, there's a lot of other stuff on here that makes sense, like Resident Evil and Tekken 3 and fucking Cool Borders 2, but, like, why you gotta pick the fucking PAL version for all these games?
Yeah.
Lennon, you said you had a story about the launch of this.
Yeah, it was, like, people instantly hated this fucking thing because it was $100 of trash.
That's
it's $100, by the way.
More expensive than either Nintendo or Sega's offerings.
I remember that vividly because of, like, how many people would just, like, come in and cancel their pre-order, or just, like, they just ghosted it. We had these things sitting in our back room for probably a year.
Yeah.
Like, and they went on sale almost instantly. They were like, they started doing $25 off deals, like, immediately.
I remember I started working at Walmart in electronics in late 2019, and we had these. and they were already discounted to like $30 or 20, and then at one point $20 before they got removed completely, and like somebody finally bought like the last ones.
Yeah, no, they plummeted real quick in price. They were trying to like literally give these away because the only people that would find these like amusing is someone who is actually willing to hack it and like put on proper ROMs.
I was gonna say, from what I understand, hacking one of these is actually not super difficult, and you can like get ROMs on it pretty easily.
Yeah.
But
that said,
that's like the only advantage, honestly.
Having PAL versions, especially for games that really should be the North American versions of the game, so that they can have the extra frame rate.
Yeah.
And
why are they at 50 hertz? Put out the ROM that runs at 60 hertz, please.
And just having those glaring omissions, like some of the stuff that Landon said, it's like, even if they were insistent on not using the DualShock to make it more classic, there's still so many games that they just missed.
Yeah.
To charge $100 for this like totally half-assed collection is absurd. Like, I remember people hated this when it came out.
No, yeah. It was a visceral reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And
like, understandably so, because it was very much Sony just trying to cash in on the trend that Nintendo started and doing a piss-poor job of it.
And just so you're aware, the Japanese version of this release, not much better, really. They missed some of the games that we got, and they only have Arc the Lad 1 and 2, Armored Core, Devil Dice, G. Darius, Gradius Gaiden, and Parasite Eve, Saga Frontier as games to make up for the missing games that they don't have. So nothing crazy, nothing really sticks out that's like,
I think it's weird that Parasite Eve was a Japanese only one though.
Yeah, it's
weird. I know.
But,
and again, no Legend of Dragoon.
No, you know what I'm honestly baffled is that Revelations Persona was on the US version. Yeah, that is like the one wow.
I know, right?
Like, it
I'm
is
surprised
weird.
You bothered.
So
yeah,
let's move away from the PlayStation Classic because that's not a very good release, and let's talk about the last of like the ones that we're really going to talk a lot about. We might name drop a couple other things, but the Nintendo Entertainment Classic, Nintendo Entertainment System Classic, and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic, because.
And Game Gears.
And the game...
But those are real quick and easy.
Or the Game & Watch, rather.
Yeah, the Game & Watch, that's what I mean. We already talked about the Game Gear. I'm just so excited to revisit those. So in 2016,
Nintendo they were not the first ones to release this type of console, but they were first to really get this whole, as Landon was mentioned, this whole, really get a lot of momentum going behind this type of hardware. And this was their big 2016 release, by the way. They didn't have a big holiday 2016, so this was the thing they wanted people to buy.
Oh yeah, no,
and
okay.
Boy, did people
I will
buy
say,
it.
I was working at Meijer in the electronics department when this came out, and the amount of phone calls that I had for this thing was absurd. The thing about the NES Classic is I don't think Nintendo realized just how huge it was going to be, so they didn't make nearly as many as they thought they would need. And it was sold out fucking everywhere, and scalpers were charging hundreds of dollars for it online. Because this thing was only $60 when it launched, and for how many games is it?
30 for this one.
30? That's pretty good. It's not the strongest collection, from what I remember, but it has pretty much all of the essentials.
So I'll list off the games real quick. We got, for the North America releases, Balloon Fight, Bubble Bobble, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, Donkey Kong Jr., Double Dragon 2 The Revenge, Dr. Mario, Excite Bike, Final Fantasy, Galaga, Ghosts and Goblins, Gradius, Ice Climber, Kid Icarus. Notably, that was only in our territory. Kirby's Adventure, The Legend of Zelda, Mario Brothers, Mega Man 2, Metroid, Ninja Gaiden, Pac-Man, Punch-Out featuring Mr. Dream. They couldn't use the Mike Tyson version because reasons, obviously. Star Tropics, Super Contra, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2 USA, Super Mario Brothers 3. You got Tecmo Bowl. You got Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link.
I will say, I think it's really funny and really interesting that Final Fantasy 1 was only in the US version of this, but Japan got Final Fantasy 3.
But not Final Fantasy 1 or 2.
No.
Like, Final Fantasy 3, like, obviously we're talking about 3-3.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 3 was, like, their biggest game of the trilogy on the NES. But still, like, it's so weird that it's notably, it is the only one in the Japanese version. They don't use 1 or 2. They just have 3.
Now, I should ask, when it says Final Fantasy for the US one, is that Final Fantasy 1 or Final Fantasy 2?
It's Final Fantasy 1. The original Final Fantasy that we got, like the very first one, was the first game. We did not get 2 originally.
Right. Okay. And then Final Fantasy 2 was actually Final Fantasy 4.
Correct. And
is
then,
that right?
Yes. And then Final Fantasy 3 was Final Fantasy 6.
3 was Final Fantasy 6. I ask that because we'll get to the Super Nintendo classic after, but like that one has Final Fantasy 6 on it, but it's labeled as Final Fantasy 3.
Yeah, true. Because that's what it released as out here.
So I will say, for what it is a decent lineup. Now, obviously 30 games, you really gotta like pick and choose, but they give a good variety of different games. Now, it is a shame that because they were, only doing 30, they couldn't get more of the original Mega Man titles, but obviously 2 is going to be like the really big get to have. So at least they like picked like the most important one, arguably, at least out of those. Same goes for certain other series. It's good that they like picked like what is going to be the thing that, will really define it as like a classic title. Although one thing I find interesting about the library is they do have several just like general arcade classic games that were obviously popular on the NES. But I mean, stuff like Galaga and Pac-Man, it feels like they were just like, yeah, just put it on there.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't know how much more you can add to this library without like starting to go into deep cuts, but like,
I mean, it covers all the bases.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your Metroid, Legend of Zelda, you got a Mega Man game, you've got Mario, you have Kirby, you've got
Castlevania.
You got Castlevania. So like you have Final Fantasy. I mean, it would have been cool to have a Dragon Warrior.
Yeah, like a Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest would have been really cool on this thing.
And I know that it's the biggest one, and it's not a Nintendo franchise, but it would have been cool to have at least one other Mega Man game on there. Personal preference, but I like Mega Man 3 more than Mega Man 2, so
yeah,
I would have been nice to see that on there as well. But I remember I just didn't really have that strong of an interest in getting this when it came out, just because like I can play most of these games pretty easily via the Wii U.
Yeah, so I think,
which was out at the time.
This product specifically from Nintendo is not so different from the Genesis Mini in that it's really good quality emulation and it's really good for enthusiasts, but there's also a million different ways to play these games because they have put them on every like virtual console that they've had for services. Like you can get these on Wii, you can get these on Wii U, you can get these on 3DS. They're almost all of these are on the Nintendo Switch Online services now. So like there are so many different ways to play a lot of these games. And Landon mentioned the Game & Watch products. Those have a couple of the Mario and Zelda games on there from this, so like there's a lot of options to play these games. But
this is definitely for original NES enthusiasts, especially ones that just stopped playing games like they
it was
cut off at some point. So
yeah, it was. I remember it was like really popular with like, not to say older folks, but like people in their late 30s, maybe
folks,
like mid late 30s. But no, it was like I remember it so vividly. Like, I don't remember how many we got when it first came out, but it wasn't nearly enough because we were getting phone calls about it like every single day for that entire Christmas season. It was
probably
absurd.
like 6.
It was it was definitely less than 10.
Yeah.
Because I remember we had people lined up before midnight because back then we actually, well, I mean, I don't know if they still do midnight releases at Meijer or not, but I haven't worked in there in years, but we did do midnight releases for a lot of shit back then. So like we had people like lining up in the electronics section like hours before midnight just to grab one of those. And you know, I think once like a certain number of people lined up, we were just like, all right, this is all we have left. No one else is going to get any, so you might as well go home.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I definitely was one of those people where I was interested in it, but because I had ways to play a lot of the games that I cared about on it, because I was using my 3DS a lot at the time, I didn't feel the pressure to get this. And now that it's gone, it's like, oh, maybe I should have just gotten it, because like there's no. They're definitely more available to buy at a reasonable price than the thing we're going to talk about immediately after this.
There was a couple opportunities for me to like purchase like a good quality pre-owned one while I was still working for GameStop. And like every time like I thought about it, and I was like, why? It's just like it's like,
no, because like eventually,
what am I gonna play on this that I can't like? I mean, I guess now I don't have a Wii U that has most of this stuff anymore.
I'm just gonna come out and say it. This is the NES Classic, which means it's NES games, which means it's really not that exciting. It's kind of it's cool that Nintendo did this because this was their first attempt at doing something like this after we've seen a bunch of like offshoot companies do like emulator handhelds and emulator consoles that have a bunch of built-in games, and a lot of them were really shitty. So getting a good quality OEM version of this sort of thing was great, but at the same time, it's the NES. Like it's dead by now. Like who cares?
Like I said, it was for enthusiasts of like these when they were kids. Like, they loved playing the NES and just stopped playing video games at one point. That's really who the market was for.
I will say, I find it also interesting that Japan got NES Open Tournament Golf, but the US didn't.
Why?
Because that's a Nintendo game.
I remember playing NES Open Tournament Golf. Like, that's kind of a big
Mario's
deal.
In that one.
Yeah.
Like,
once again, I hate these like regional
specific games, right?
It's fucking stupid. It makes sense for some cases because if they were released like region exclusive originally, then there probably wouldn't be that much of a demand for it.
Or if it's a situation where like the game is just like that popular in only that region, so it's not going to get any attention by being released in a different region. That's another thing.
But like, it's NES Open.
Yeah.
I know, that's like, it was actually like a popular title on the system.
It's here. Like, is Kid Icarus that more popular out here than it is Japan for that?
Yeah, because for some reason, I was going to say, for some reason, Japan did not get Kid Icarus.
Yeah, so that's so weird.
What the fuck? Oh well, let's move on.
A few years later, in 2019, Nintendo would, or 2020?
Super Nintendo Classic?
2017, my bad. They came out with it. I was going to say, it was just that's right.
It was less than a year later.
I was thinking about a different system. So, they would come out with the Super Nintendo Classic, and this product, let's talk about the games real quick. We got Contra 3, The Alien Wars, Donkey Kong Country, Earthbound, F-Zero.
We have to talk about Earthbound not being in the Japanese version.
Which is funny as fuck.
Why is... And just so you guys are aware, it's not because, they had Mother 2. No.
They just didn't get Earthbound.
They didn't get Earthbound.
Which is really funny. I don't know why.
That is weird.
Okay, continue, please.
F-Zero, Final Fantasy VI, Kirby Superstar, Kirby's Dream Course, The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Mega Man X, Secret of Mana, Star Fox 2. This was like their big highlight, like bonus pack-in game, because that was actually never officially released until this product. Very interesting way for them to release it. You had Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting, Super Castlevania 4, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Super Mario Kart, Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Super Punch-Out, and Yoshi's Island.
I do own one of these, actually. Because I was way more interested in a collection of Super Nintendo games than I was in a collection of NES games, purely because a lot of these titles are harder to find and harder to play than a lot of the NES titles. And not only that, but, okay, I will say this one, it was $20 more expensive than the NES. This one was $80 in the US.
That's still decent.
But no, like, for all the games that you get, like, there's only, what is it, 22?
Yeah, it's 22
games? Quality over quantity, in my opinion, because, like, there are so many fucking great titles on here, and, like, you could argue, like, yeah,
I think
they don't have...
The only big, like, super big one that I think is missing here is Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, I would say that, but, like, man, there's so many fucking good games on here, and, like, you could make the argument, like, yeah, they should have had, like, Donkey Kong Country 2, or fucking, I don't know. I think some people wanted a different version of Street Fighter 2. I'm not, like, that keyed in on Street Fighter to know which version people wanted.
Which is interesting, because they did have a different version in Japan with Super Street Fighter 2, the new challengers. So we got Hyper Fighting, they got new challengers. As you said, I don't actually know the differences all that much.
I don't know either, honestly.
To be fair, Street Fighter 2 has like 10, 15 different versions, so like I don't fucking know, dude.
Oh yeah, Street Fighter 2 is famous for being like one of the most re-released games of all time. And by re-released, I mean like
in different versions.
Different versions of that game.
Yeah.
I will say it looks like the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting is a slightly older title. It came out the year before New Challengers.
Okay. So we did get a slightly older version. So I guess I can see the, like, you know, being a little, like, the real big Street Fighter 2 enthusiasts being a little annoyed at that, but, like, most people I don't think are going to care.
But, like, no, there's so many fucking good games on here. Like, I actually used my Super Nintendo Classic for my Link to the Past Let's Play.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because it was, like, the easiest way that I could, like, play the game. I could also play it, like, on a Super Nintendo controller. And I will say, like, they do an excellent job of feeling exactly like
the original
brand new Super Nintendo controller. Like, it fits perfectly in your hand. It's a really, like, sturdy, like, solid controller. You can plug it into your Wii remote. It's got the same, like, jack as the, like, classic controller for the Wii, so you could use that to play virtual console games on your Wii.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did that. I did not mention this, but that was also a thing that they had started with the NES Classic, where you can do the same thing.
It used the same jacks.
It's a bit of a bigger deal with the Super Nintendo Classic, because that's literally the controller that, like, almost every controller is based on going forward. So, like, that makes, you know, that one is more in line with what you're going to expect.
Yeah, I think this is a really excellent package, and plus, like, even if you're not satisfied, as far as I know, these things are very easily moddable, so you can, like, add whatever games you want to it, and I think, like, if I have one, like, minor complaint, it's that the cord length for the controllers isn't the longest, and the console itself is, like this big.
Yeah.
So, like, you kind of have to sit pretty close to the TV if you want to, like, play something. But, like, that's pretty much my only complaint with this thing. I mean, like, it's a really nice package. It's got good presentation. The game selection is excellent. Like, there's 5 different RPGs on here that are all, like, dozens of hours apiece.
Like,
Yeah,
this is notwithstanding a few like bigger titles as we mentioned. This is like an all-star lineup, just about for what it is.
And the fact that it included Earthbound,
and
like
it's you're basically getting each game for less than $4 when you think about it. And that is, in fact, less money than they typically were charging on the Virtual Console by a lot. So, like, if you were buying a lot of these games, like, you might want to just consider just getting the Classic Edition because you would just have them all for cheaper.
This was another one that was also really sought after. I don't remember getting as many phone calls about it, but I also stopped working at Meijer in early November of 2017, so I wasn't there for the Christmas season.
Yeah.
But I remember the night that it launched, I was like doing a closing shift, and there was already like, I think we got like 12 copies of it at our store, and we already had like 12 people lined up by the time like my shift was over. And I'm like, fuck, I kind of wanted to get one. So like I called up the other two Meijers in Fort Wayne, and I ended up driving to the other side of town so that I could get in line for one at like, I think it was like 9 p.m. and I waited for like 3 hours ish so that I could get one, and I did. So it was worth it.
I'm going to keep my thoughts on this one short because I did not get to experience it at all. I wanted to get one. I did not get one because this was in 2017, and I was too busy buying lots and lots of games for my Switch, and also I was moving into a new apartment, so I had to have money for that. So I didn't have time to get one. My parents got one. They would not open it because my stepdad was getting it as like a collector item that maybe one day he would sell to a collector if he was interested in selling it, but he just wanted to like hold on to it. So they wouldn't even let me open it. Like that thing was unopened. The last time I saw it several years ago. Like, that thing is crisp in the box.
You should go steal it.
But I've always wanted one of these just because it's so awesome. But like, I don't have confidence that I'll be able to find one for a decent price. I haven't looked at what they're going for. That said, that's about all I'm going to say because I don't have enough experience with it. And also, I really need to pee. So, Landon...
You know what? I have to pee too, so that works out.
No, well, okay. I'll stick around. I don't want Landon to just be talking to himself.
Okay, I'll stick around. I'll wait until you come back.
Is Landon actually going to have to do the mid-episode break?
I was going to say, so like my idea was we talk a little bit about this, then we bring up the Game & Watch items that you had talked about, and then we'll go to our mid...
I think if you both have to piss your pants right now, you should just do it live on camera for YouTube.
I can hold it. I'll be fine. I can hold it in.
I can hold it for a little
I don't have to go.
All right.
I was just going to ask you, Landon, like, if you remembered what the launch was for this was like compared to the first one.
It was a lot smoother because Nintendo knew there was going to be high demand, so they actually made the product.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but both of these went like really quick, like you were saying.
Because they didn't do pre-orders for these, did they?
GameStop did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, you could. I remember you could pre-order them. You could also pre-order the PlayStation Classic. So yeah,
yeah. See how well that worked out.
Yeah,
it's 21 games, by the way, so 20 plus Star Fox 2, which makes sense. But still,
honestly,
less than
the
$4
20 games if they had to pick just 20 Super Nintendo games, I feel like they picked a pretty fucking solid selection. Again, the only thing I would have added is Chrono Trigger, but
they did 5 RPGs.
Personally, yes, Chrono Trigger, would have loved that. And you mentioned Donkey Kong Country 2. I think, the big omission for me would be Kirby's Dream Land 3 not being on there. I know they have Superstar and Dream Course, but, Dreamland 3 is more of, a more traditional, Kirby game. Whereas Superstar, bless your heart, but it is not your straightforward Kirby platformer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the collection of stuff.
Yeah.
That's
I think it's
probably
more
the big one for me.
I think Superstar was just chosen just because, like, when you think of Super Nintendo and Kirby, like, that's the first game most people think of. So it was like the classic choice.
I don't give a shit about.
I mean,
any of that.
I am also thankful that they included Kirby's Dream Course, because Kirby's Dream Course is like one of the most underrated Super Nintendo games in my opinion.
And only in our region. Japan did not get this one.
That's a damn shame for them, because I love Kirby's Dream Course.
Yeah. And then again, I think it's weird that there wasn't a Dragon Quest for the Japanese version, because
I'm kind of surprised.
You had like the re-releases for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 and 3 that had like the Super Nintendo enhancements. But you also had like Dragon Quest 5, which was like the one that released on here.
But Landon, they had to make room for Super Soccer from Spike Chunsoft.
Well, those games, like football titles in Japan are actually like pretty big. Like there's some series out there.
Please,
they did get
please,
they did
call
get
it what
Panel
it is.
Delpon.
It's
so,
soccer.
You know,
Tetris
them getting
Attack.
Yeah, we didn't get Tetris Attack, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but they
we didn't get
Panel,
a Tetris on this, which is also another weird one.
They got Panel Delpon. They also got Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem as well.
Those ones make sense for us to not get because those never got translated.
Yeah. I mean, we would get Tetris Attack, and we didn't. Panel Delpon was like released on the Nintendo Switch Online service, and it's not translated either. So like, that's the first exposure we got to like the original Panel Delpon.
Yeah, so no, it makes sense that Fire Emblem we didn't get any of the Fire Emblems for this or the other one for North America, but it's a little. I think Dragon Quest being another omission is just
weird.
What are you gonna do though? Okay,
I guess.
I don't have anything prepared for the Game Gears, or not the. I'm gonna keep saying Game Gear.
He loves Game Gear.
I just, love my Game Gear.
Just really wants to talk about the Game Gear some more.
I really want to talk about original Game Gear. No, so the Game & Watch, there was the Super Mario one, and then there's a Zelda one. So I think it's weird that they never... I have some stuff that I wish Nintendo would have done in this frame. We'll get to that, actually.
There's so many things that they could have done this with, and they just didn't.
Yes. So... Mario had what? Super Mario,
Lost
Super
Levels.
Mario, 2, and then was that it for the real games? And then
for the real games, that was it. Super Mario and Lost Levels.
Was it Ball? Was that the game? Watch?
I think so.
And
Ball.
Yeah, I think it was Ball, because Zelda had Vermin, where you're trying to hit the mole. And then it has Zelda 1, 2, and the Game Boy version of Link's Awakening. Not the Game Boy Color Director's Cut, but the Game Boy version. I think it's actually a really nice way to play Zelda, because that's the one I own. I'm a bigger Zelda fan than I am Mario, so yeah. But I also I don't think I bought it new. I thought I found one that was pre-owned for a really good price with the original packaging, so I was like, let's do it. Because this is not the type of stuff that I want to spend new money on.
Yeah, no.
That's especially like Zelda 1 and 2 and Link's Awakening, or Mario 1 and 2. I say 2, but it Lost Levels.
And keep in mind, these are $50.
Yeah, they were $50, and it's another thing that's very neat for a collector as a gift. These are holiday gift items.
I mean, you played through Zelda 1 using a Game & Watch. Was it
I did.
How was that experience?
It was surprisingly easy and clear to see on the screen. You could do soft saves, so you could put your system into sleep mode and pick it up. And the batteries on these are really long, so I would just throw it in my jacket pocket, and I pull it out, play it while I was on work lunch, and it was nice. So
Yeah.
it was very convenient because it's very like pocket size,
Right.
which was nice.
But yeah, what Landon said is true. These are like even more so than any of the other stuff we talked about before, except for maybe the Game Gear minis. It's pretty much just for collectors.
Yeah.
It's like at least with the like the classic consoles, like those were something that you could feasibly hook up and play. But these are mostly just kind of like a cute thing to have.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a nice way to play those older Zelda games. Just skip Zelda 2. Don't worry about it.
So that is it for like officially released consoles. Besides, like there's the Atari Flashback, the first two. There's a whole series of these fuckers, but Atari actually made the first two themselves. That's not saying a whole lot because Atari's brand has just kind of shifted from owner to owner, but I mean it still counts for something.
But Cloud, you're forgetting.
There is Arcade 1-Up that has like a bunch of like some like different like arcade games depending on which thing we're talking about.
In actual cabinets.
Yeah, in actual cabinets. So like they actually like are, you know, they give you the arcade experience. I mean, there's like a list here that I actually linked to, so like we can talk about more of these like at the end, because a lot of these are just kind of like name drop. Oh, that was interesting that they did that. But before we get to some like really big third party heavy hitters, let's go take a quick break, and we will talk about we'll rattle off our social media stuff and our Twitch goings on, and I will go pee because I have to go really bad.
Did you want me to do it, Landon?
No. What? Why not have me do it for the first time in, what is this, episode 47?
I believe so.
First time in 47 episodes, I get to talk about Twitch.com.
47 years.
In 47 years, I get to talk about Twitch.com/GamingStooges, folks.
I also have to pee, so I'll be right back.
Get out of here. Folks, hi. Welcome. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. We have a Twitch channel where you can watch us play games live. At the time of this recording, Cloud is playing he's playing Super Mario 64. Jack and I have been playing through Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, and I'm playing Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. Some of that stuff we are still doing probably by the time this comes out. Definitely Ace Attorney and Dragon Quest. But you can watch all of the VODs for any of the games we play on our YouTube channel, which might be where you're watching this. So if you're done watching or listening to the podcast, go ahead, head over there. We have tons of back matter. You have Let's Plays that we did when we first started the channel. You have VODs for a lot of the games we played on our Twitch, and a lot of discussions that we also have done over the years. Like, years worth of content at this point. Like, literal, you could watch things for like weeks. There's so much content on there. And also, if you appreciate the show, we have a Patreon. Patreon.com/GamingStooges. You can donate $3 a month, and you can vote on topics of what we discuss on the podcast, and also sometimes what we play on Twitch. If you donate $6 a month, not only do you get all of that fun stuff, you also get access to exclusive video content. Currently, we did a thing. Wow, wasn't that interesting?
Wow.
And, yeah, I mean,
up.
Well, we haven't done the January one, but we've done the January one. You can go and watch it. Yeah. And we do fun things. We do tier lists. We do alignment charts. We do like collection show-offs. We do tabletop actual plays. We've done a couple different ones. I might convince Cloud to let us do the Phantasy Star one.
I kind of really want to, actually.
It is, so
it's Phantasy Star.
It's Phantasy Star. It's an augment of D&D 5e, so it's a system everyone here knows fairly well. So like it's coming out summer 2025. So like,
hell yeah,
there's a good chance Cloud will let us do that.
Not only will I let you, I insist.
Okay, well, it's $70 for the book, so we'll see.
All right. I will be aware of that, and I will pitch in for that.
Yeah, well, I could probably just get a PDF for much less, but the book to pre-order with like a starter adventure and stuff is $70. But like, I'm on the fence on that one. Whereas there's also a Legend of Heroes one's coming out, and when that comes out, I am buying that. I really hope do it.
I was gonna say, I really hope that for the Phantasy Star one, they have like a campaign to fight Dark Force, because it would not make any fucking sense if there's no Dark Force. There has to be Dark Force.
Yeah, they put out like a newsletter like to people that are subscribed to the email for notifications on it, and that's how I remember, because I was like, why the fuck am I being told about this? I forgot that I'd subscribed to that when I first heard about it. And they're like setting up for a FAQ, so people can submit their like questions for it. So I was like double checking everything, because I had like purged this from my memory for the Phantasy Star TTRPG, but like looking into everything, I was like, oh yeah, this looks really cool. They have like a lore book that they're going to do alongside of it, like that covers like Phantasy Star lore. It looks like it'll have ship combat and like a ton of cool stuff. So that'll be something coming to a Patreon down the road. Some good stuff. And also $6 gold tier Stooge members. You get a shout out, Pixel Vixen. I assume you will still be giving us $6 a month, so I'm just going to give you that shout out, regardless or not. That's
Pixel Vixen.
I think that covers most of the things. Oh, one more thing. Discord. We have a Discord. Join it. It is free. You do not have to be a patron in order to get on our Discord. Links for most of this shit is down in the description, or wherever the description is. It might be to the left or right now. They move things around.
Depends
sometimes.
on which platform you're watching or listening to this through.
But we try to link most things, specifically YouTube, Twitch, and Patreon. The Patreon. Yeah.
So,
I'm leaving now because usually I get up to do a bit. Now I've done that. Now I have to get up and do a bit.
So,
go do your bit.
I will ease us into the next thing I wanted to talk about. So, earlier, we were talking about how Sega jumped in and did their own official aftermarket hardware with the Game Gear Mini, the Genesis Mini, the Genesis Mini 2, which was more like a Genesis and CD Mini. But before that, they were one of many companies to make a mistake in putting their faith in a company called AtGames. I just wanted to give this company a section for this podcast just to shit on them, because their products kind of suck. I don't know if you know who AtGames are, but they've done retro consoles for Atari and Sega and others.
Oh yeah,
and
I know which ones you're talking about.
They are infamous for their aftermarket consoles. They are the same type where like they'll have a bunch of bundled in games. But that said, they also will usually have, like, depending on what the hardware is, there might be a slot where you could connect the official games. But even then, the emulation, because these use emulation, so they'll even take, like, the cartridge and, like, run it on a ROM, have really bad emulation quality. The audio and graphics are usually just not correct. And the overall hardware is usually very cheap and just not good quality, built.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna come out and say my one major experience with AtGames. I got one as a gift for Christmas one year. And I don't think that my friend's older sister realized that the product would be shitty quality because she probably didn't know who At Games were. She was just like, oh, hey, this is built in a bunch of Sega games. He likes these kind of things. He'll probably like this. And at first, when I got it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. There's like a bunch of Sega Genesis games. And then I plugged in and played it. And I felt something was wrong like immediately. And I tried to see if there was a way to fix it. And there isn't, because At Games hardware is garbage.
You know where you do not find Atware's games hardware? Inside Tillamook ice cream. Folks,
Tillamook ice cream is At Games free.
At Games free. Look at that.
No At Games.
I don't see any games in there.
Thank God.
No games, but definitely no At Games. So, you know what?
Yeah.
Eat your Tillamook.
It's good for you.
It's good for you. No, At Games free.
Do you have any experience with At Games hardware, Jack?
I don't believe so, no. I'm definitely familiar. Huh?
Laughing at it. Because of how bad it is.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm definitely familiar, and I know how, like, the reputation that they have because of how cheap and shitty they are, but yeah, no, I've never bothered to actually own one.
Right. And it is kind of funny that At Games would have such bad hardware, especially for the Sega Genesis ones, because they were not the only company to be able to sell this kind of hardware, because the company Tectoy would be given permission from Sega to release consoles for the Master System and the Genesis pretty much immediately after their initial runs. And those were fine. So, like, what the fuck? But yeah, Tectoy, they are known for releasing their hardware mostly to other territories where Sega couldn't, like, get their foot in. Like, they are the reason that Brazil has a fuck ton of Master Systems.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
That's true.
Now, whether you consider the Tectoy stuff aftermarket is kind of up to you, because technically it is not, it's not in the distant future after a console's run, but they are manufacturing and releasing hardware after their normal, after like the official manufacturer stopped doing it for at least the regions where they're doing so. So it's a little wonky, but you could kind of see it either way. I never got to experience any of this stuff because I don't live in a region where Tectoy really functions. I do remember the Majesco Sega Genesis Model 3 though.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. The major problem with it is that because it's Majesco and not Sega, there's no Sega CD support. I wasn't missing anything. I didn't play any Sega CD games, but it was fine. Like, it was a good, cheap way to play the system. We talked about this in a previous podcast with the 16-bit console wars. So you can go listen to that if you want to hear more about that. But thankfully, At Games are not the only company that make aftermarket hardware that is like not from the official manufacturers. Because if they were, then then this whole market would have a really bad name. Another company I really want to talk about, and they're like kind of a trailblazer for the third-party end of things, would be Hyperkin. Hyperkin is known for a lot of these kind of products. Their major one being their Retron series. The Retron series covering different consoles depending on which model you have. The Retron 5 being a major one. Landon and I both have one. And typically, like, you'll have more consoles to cover the higher the number is. So with the Retron 5, you've got Genesis, Super Nintendo, you've got NES, you've got Game Boy / Game Boy Advance,
and Famicom and Super Famicom.
Yep, Famicom and Super Famicom.
Those have different
slots.
Cartridges.
slots,
Correct.
so that it
Correct.
supports both.
So
And
it supports
you can
that.
get an adapter.
And the adapter lets you play Game Gear and Master System games, as well
And
as
Master
like
System
those,
card games.
yeah, the little cards too. Thank you for verifying, because like I knew that there was like a card thing, but I didn't know for what system that was supposed to be supporting.
It was
So
Master
it's-
System, so it did like basically the complete Master System
Nice.
experience. So yeah, you get like with the adapter, you get you
That's a
basically have
huge library.
most systems that you like would care for to have, minus the 64. Like that's like the
Well-
major emitter.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm kind of thinking more of like those. I mean, Game Boy Advance notwithstanding, because that's like
Yeah.
a really recent one. But like, I was thinking more of like those generations. I guess you're missing like turbo graphics, but like that's kind of it, really.
TurboGrafx hard because there's like 3 different media the games came out on.
Yeah, they had cards,
Which-
they had discs, they had like other weird things that they
Yeah,
use. So like,
which makes it hard to like, and that's like Analog is another company that does this type of stuff, and they have basically they have a pocket for Game Boys, and they have an adapter for TurboGrafx specifically for the card. And I was like, okay, cool. What is that hardware? Like, what came out with that specific medium? And the only thing that I was like, yeah, I would buy that for that is Dungeon Explorer. Pretty much all of the Falcom games came out on disc.
oh, that sucks.
And I'm like, well, there goes really any point in me like having the desire to have like the TurboGrafx like port for that.
Yeah. So you're better off just buying a TurboGrafx model that has the CD support.
Yeah, I'd have to probably buy a Japanese console because they're all Japanese.
but- On top of the Retron 5, they also had other stuff, like they had other Retron models that only support like just the Super Nintendo or just the NES or just the Game Boy, the Superboy. And those are known those are like basically more like affordable products, because the Retron 5 is like $150, but you can get these other ones for like 30 or 40. So like for less than the cost of a full retail game, you can get a system that'll support all the hardware from like one particular console. But yeah, Hyperkin is a big player in this field.
I would say
and-
the unfortunate thing about the Retrons is their controllers are dog fucking piss shit cum stains. Get that
Yeah.
shit out of here.
So Hyperkin, they always bundle like a controller with their systems, and the ones that they bundle in are really bad. They
Throw it
do
away.
sell they
Throw
do
it
sell
away.
they do sell third party their own like third party versions of the older like controllers that go for these systems. They're not as good as the OEM controllers, but they're fine. They're better than the bundled in controller.
I have a question.
Yes.
What kind of port do the controllers use on the Retron?
Yes.
So
Original.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna
original
say,
ports.
so-
Okay, the original
they
ones?
use
Okay.
the original ports, so you can use OEM controllers. The
Okay.
controller that it comes with is Bluetooth, but you can use like the original actual like hard like accessories for controllers. You don't have to use
Okay.
those.
So, like, on
Okay.
my Retron 5, I use a 6-button Genesis controller for all of the games I play on it. You can
Fair
you
enough.
can mix and match the controller. Like, you can play, like, Super Nintendo games. Like, that's where, like, it gets a little hard is Super Nintendo games on, like, some of the other controllers. But theoretically, you could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally use Hyperkin's what's called Scout Premium wired controller, which is it's basically just the Super Nintendo controller, but it's got like some contouring to feel a little more comfortable. But it's just a basic wired controller that uses the SNES controller port, and it gets the job done. So, I mean, I sometimes have issues with the D-pad The D-pad sometimes reads inputs a little funky if you're doing it really fast inputs, but that might be less the controller. It could just be the fact that the games are running emulation, like they ripped the game from the cartridge and then they will hold it on the system so that you can it can like have separate save states through that, and also so that like if you take the cart out, it'll remember the very last thing you did on the cartridge. So like if you put the cart back in and you start the game up, it can just instantly start from wherever it was that you put the cart in last time. So
it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it has a lot of quality features.
They're really nice hardware. It's like, now, I like it a lot.
They're not perfect. Like, I do have a few small issues. Namely, my major issue with them is that at least my Retron 5, I don't know if like this is an issue for many people, but I can't insert a cartridge before powering the system on, or else it doesn't properly read the game.
I think that's just a general thing with the Retron 5.
So you have to turn the system on and then insert the game after the system's booted up. But other than that, like I mean,
you'd think it would be the other way around. Like,
right.
It wouldn't recognize the cartridge unless it was in the system when you turned it on.
No, because it has like a hub menu, like a home menu. So like you can, go into your settings for like the whole console. You can like check your files for like saves and stuff like that. So on that, you'll also have it's about as rudimentary as like the DS was, or like the DSi's menu. It's like, it just has like your basics with some side stuff. And, so like when you're on the main part of that screen, you can insert the cartridge and it'll give you a notification that's loading the cartridge into the system to play it. So it is a little weird, but other than that, I mean, Landon's had his for years. Yours still works good.
Yeah. I haven't used it in a bit, but like it's like I assume it's fine. I used it a lot for the channel, like doing different like Let's Plays, or I was pretty much just using it for some Let's Plays. But yeah, I also got mine for free, so
I bought mine, and I will say I'm satisfied with it. Oh yeah, one other small issue I have is more so just like it's not an issue with the system, it's just something you need to be aware of. Because you can play the save file that's on a cartridge, but you can also play a save that's separate from the cartridge that's on the Retron. You need to keep track of which one you're using, because I have had so many instances of accidentally overwriting my save and losing progress completely.
I ran into a little bit of that when I was doing the Pokemon Silver version Let's Play, because I would have to dump the game back onto the cartridge so I could do trades for gold or crystal, and then like redo everything. It was like, oh god.
I have had one specific game not work on me for some reason, and that's my copy of Pokemon Ruby. I don't know why. It's the only one that it doesn't work. And not that like it doesn't load the game. It loads the game fine. Here's the problem. It does not recognize my cartridge's save no matter what I do. So it only allows me to start a new game. Problem is, I have a like 100 plus hour file on my cartridge. I do not want to start a new game. So
it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. And I just don't play my Ruby version on that, but like it's the only instance of that popping up. So it might just be that maybe I did something funky at one point with like save writing, and something corrupted, and even though I've tried to wipe all the files from that sort of thing, it's just not working anymore. So that's more of like a me thing, but it is just to drill the point home. Make sure you know where your saves are, which save you're using, because the Retron is not very good at preventing you from making a mistake. But other than that, yeah, like Landon said, good hardware. It has really good compatibility for something that's basically emulating the game by taking the file off of it. And it's pretty compatible.
For games that have like that you would need a translation patch, there is a SD card slot where you can download translation patches and then upload it and play it with that.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
it's a good way to
one and stop shop, really.
Yeah, it's a good way to play imported games if you need to. That's why they have the Super Famicom and Famicom slots, so you'll have that access if you want to. So it's impressive that the Retron 5 specifically is what we've been talking for the most part about. But some of this stuff can apply to other versions of their hardware. But like, it's amazing that they have that much compatibility with that many games.
Yeah.
Like, for what it is. So it's really good. Landon also mentioned the company Analog. They did release the Analog Pocket, which, as he said, it plays Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. You can get an adapter to play Game Gear games.
And TurboGrafx
cards.
Yeah. And I think Wonder...
Does it have Wonder Swan?
I think it also has an adapter for Wonder Swan. I have the website open. Hold on.
If it can do that and Neo Geo Pocket, honestly, that's like the definitive classic handheld system.
It might just be Neo Geo Pocket that I'm thinking of.
Okay. But as of the recording of this podcast, they are in the middle of manufacturing orders for pre-orders of their upcoming Analog 3D, which is an aftermarket N64 that is fully compatible with all N64 stuff. It'll have the same like OEM ports, so you can use your official N64 controllers. It won't come with a controller, but you can buy controllers made by 8BitDo, which can talk a little bit more about them later as well. That are going to be like very faithful.
It's Atari Lynx, not Wonder
Lynx?
Swan. Lynx, sorry, yeah, Lynx. Atari Lynx.
Atari Linux. It's a weird concept.
Hell
like a
yeah,
cat.
Linux has Atari now.
I mean,
Yeah, let's go.
someone has to. But so Atari Lynx is the other one. So yeah, Neo Geo Pocket, TurboGrafx 16, Atari Lynx, and then Game Gear are the other like mobile consoles that it supports, or like other consoles it supports, which is like a pretty good like library of stuff that's not just, you know, your more home console-ish stuff. I mean, TurboGrafx PC Engine stuff is sort of that weird mix.
To be fair, I mean, I think that's more because like there was the Turbo Express, which did the same thing. So but that's a lot of support. So
but there's a couple issues. Do
you have one?
No.
Oh, okay.
I've looked into getting one though, like pretty seriously.
So we do want to mention we have a couple people in our server on Discord, which again you can join our Discord if you want, that are using the Analog Pocket to play games. At a lot of the things they've said are positive things about this handheld. So
I think most of it is just like price point. The Analog Pocket is $220 for it itself.
Without the adapter.
Yeah, without the adapter. The like dock is $100. The Game Gear adapter is $30. The other adapters come in a pack for $100.
Jeez.
Yeah, so like it's a lot of money. If you want like for me, like that's why I was like, all right, what is the like library for the TurboGrafx? Because let's be real. I'm not gonna be buying any Atari Lynx fucking shit or Neo Geo Pocket for the most part. Like, so TurboGrafx was like the one. Was like, am I willing to spend $100 to just play Dungeon Explorer? No.
Question: do you know if the Neo Geo Pocket's support is just the base Pocket or the color also?
I think it does the color.
Hell yeah, Sonic Pocket Adventure, let's fucking go.
Yeah, that'd be like the only thing. Here it just says Neo Geo Pocket Color. Yeah, Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Sonic Pocket Adventure, let's go!
Yeah, but are you willing to spend $100 on top of your $220 for the system?
Not even
for
close.
That?
Not even close.
Yeah.
And then I would have to buy a physical copy of that game, which who knows how much that's going for.
Yeah. So it looks really cool, and like I play Game Boy games, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Game Gear games enough-ish to where like I would get a little bit of mileage out of it, but like it's just like not something I'm just gonna like press the button on. Especially since we have the Switch 2 coming out soonish. So
yeah. Another system that came out that's in this same ballpark that I did want to make a quick mention of because I've seen quite a bit for it around. It's a lot more limited actually than the Analog Pocket because it only plays Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. But do you guys know anything about the a product called the Chromatic from I think it's Retrobit?
I feel like I've heard about this, but I have not like really delved into it.
Oh, the mod Retro Chromatic. My bad.
Oh,
so the Chromatic is basically a it's like a Game Boy Color, and it actually you can buy games that are like, or I think it comes with a pack of games that are technically not Game Boy games, but they have their Game Boy cartridges and they have some stuff. But it also plays official Game Boy hardware too. So it's basically a way to get a new fancy Game Boy in 2024. It did come out a little after the Analog Pocket.
Cloud.
Yeah.
We're in 2025 now.
True. We are in 2025 when this goes out. But back in the day in 2024,
so long ago,
back in my day,
you could get the Chromatic. I guess it was sold in some GameStops, but yeah, it had kind of a limited release in that regard. But I heard good things about that too.
That might be why I recognize the name, but nothing else about it.
But yeah, it didn't get the momentum that the Analog Pocket did, probably because it, one, only plays Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games, and two, the Analog Pocket also just does a lot more than it. But it was a cute, like, aftermarket Game Boy for what it's worth. Did we have any other like outright console hardware that's not of stuff we've mentioned so far that we wanted to give a quick shout out to?
Well, we haven't mentioned the Jack's Pacific plug-and-play games.
Please do, because this is one of the harbingers of this whole thing.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, they were pretty much like the original ones.
Oh yeah.
I think. I mean,
I have a Shinron one down in the basement.
So Hyperkin might be like the trailblazers for like using your old hardware, like your old cartridge games with like some sort of like support nowadays. But before that, we had plug and plays.
Mm-hmm. I definitely had the Pac-Man one and the Ms. Pac-Man one. And I think my sister had the SpongeBob one, which is technically not applicable because that's a set of original games. But definitely the two Pac-Man ones are would fit here because they are just Namco, like small Namco collections. They come with 5 games apiece, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what all it was on each one, but I remember the selection on Ms. Pac-Man being slightly more exciting, because it also had the joystick that you could twist, and you could play pole position with that, and that was pretty sick. Hold on, let me see if I can figure out real quick what games were on each one.
I'm trying to find... Oh, okay. So it wasn't a plug and play. I think it was like a little like... It was one of those like... So like they don't on top of like the jack specific like plug and play like stuff that goes into your TV, they've also released a bunch of like these like they're not arcade 1-ups where it's like a sizable arcade cabinet. There's been a bunch of like aftermarket like mini arcade games where like they have like a little mini arcade setup and then you can play a single game on it. I had one for Qbert.
Oh, yeah.
And only the Qbert one.
Oh, that's
funny. I don't remember when I got this, and I don't remember which version of it was, but I vividly remember playing a Qbert game in that form. I just wanted to shout it out because it's one of those things. Like they had a lot of those things. Like they had Galaga for this, Pac-Man, Tetris. There was like a lot of like these like mini, just singular game things as like a novelty. And yeah, I had a Qbert one. I didn't have any of the Jack specific ones. I had so many friends who had some form of these. There's like a Spider-Man one, and they always modeled the controller joysticks after like whatever it was you were playing too. So like the Spider-Man one had an obnoxious like Spider-Man face on like the part where you hold this under the base of the joystick, or the SpongeBob one, same thing but SpongeBob instead.
Yeah, to quote the JonTron plug and play video, he says, "A lot of these are just a penis. This one's Spider-Man's penis. Bombs away."
Yeah.
It's like the control stick just looks like extremely phallic, and it's just pretty funny. But I found out which games were on which one. The Pac-Man one had Pac-Man, obviously, Galaxian, Rally X, Dig Dug, and Bosconian. Bosconian is sick. Ms. Pac-Man. You know what? I might as well read him again since Landon's back. Hi, Landon. You're back.
I had to pee.
Oh, okay. I found out which games were on the Pac-Man plug-in plays. So the first one has Pac-Man, Galaxian, Rally X, Dig Dug, and Bosconian. But Ms. Pac-Man has that, Galaga, Xevious, Mappy, and Pole Position.
That's a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always liked the Ms. Pac-Man collection better, actually.
You know,
because the only games on the...
That one sounds familiar. Like, just based on, like, the game list, like, that one sounds familiar to me.
I'll post a picture in the of each one in the spoilers.
So, my problem with a lot of these, like, plug-and-plays, and, like, Landon, you kind of left before I mentioned it, but, like, I also bunched in, like, those, like, just miniature arcade toy things that, like, have a game or two on them. Not, like, the arcade 1-ups, like, the big ones, but, like, just the small aftermarket ones that a lot of... that would sell in a lot of stores and stuff like that, especially usually in like toy sections.
Yeah.
My problem with with these is that they're hard for me to remember because they're a lot of these are very like quick throwaway sort of things. They're not usually terrible quality, but I never remember them very well.
Well, a lot of them have just like fucking garbage on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
does that one look familiar, Cloud?
I think so. You know what? Actually, I think the Ms. Pac-Man one does look very familiar. I might have had that one.
I think both like the Namco plug-and plays are like a very popular variant of like.
Yeah, they were definitely like the biggest ones out of all of the Jack specific plug-in plays.
It would make sense too because like I remember playing Ms. Pac-Man a lot, and I don't remember what I played it on. It was possibly the NES, but if it wasn't, it was 100% through the plug-and play.
Through your phone that you just showed us?
No, I was looking up the picture. I was looking at the picture on my phone, so like that's why I waved my phone. But I'm like, yeah, this thing, that's a picture. Hold on, this guy right here for the folks at home. It's kind of hard to see because it's there. It is.
No, you can see it pretty well.
Don't share them that way. They have to go join our Discord or use a search engine. I hear
use a
Bing
search
has
engine.
nothing better to do.
You could use Bing if you want. Stick it to Google.
Yeah, fuck Google.
Honestly. Shit, I was gonna say something about... Oh yeah, it was, it really was thanks to my mom, actually, that I was able to play a lot of, like, classic Namco games, because she loved, like, Pac-Man.
Oh yeah, my mom too.
And, like, a lot of, like, old arcade games. Like, she was really good at them, actually. So it was thanks to her that I experienced a lot of old Namco games when I was a child.
Oh yeah. And what about you, Landon? Do you know of any like aftermarket products like that, like the plug and plays or like the little miniatures?
Oh yeah. Like I mentioned, I have a Shinron one that has original Dragon Ball games on it.
That's
Someone
pretty cool.
bought for me from a Goodwill, and they were like, "Here's some garbage," and I'm like, "Oh,
Thank you.
oh no."
No, you didn't thank them.
I didn't thank them. I just went, "Oh," and then I gave them a face.
Do you guys have any experience with any of the large swaths of like emulator handhelds where like they'll sell like a handheld with like a bunch of built-in games? A lot of them are like knockoffs and like bootleg games, but like some of them will sometimes have like some real games interspersed into them. They'll like advertise it's like some number of games in one.
10
I
billion
know,
games.
I know what you're talking about,
yeah.
but I never had any of those.
I had one experience with something like that, and that is because Allison actually has a handheld that's like that, and surprisingly enough, the games that are on there that are real games and not the bootlegs, because there's a lot of bootlegs on there, trust me, but the real games on there, they don't play too bad. My main issue is that the refresh on them is a little wonky, so a lot of the time the games like you can see like a diagonal line that like flickers along the screen, and it because it's like refreshing the screen in a really weird way. But other than that, it plays fine. They like the controllers are pretty good. I don't really feel like there's input lag. That's just the games out of like maybe you get like 100 games on them, like 7 of them are real, and then like the other 93 are not actually real games. So
Yeah. No, I never had one of those.
I'm glad my parents didn't bother with that.
We're
trash.
smarter than
Yeah,
that.
like they were like,
Yeah, same.
"This doesn't look good.
yeah, see,
I'm not going to
unfortunately,
waste
Yeah.
my money."
I like to like try them out as a novelty, but yeah, they're not like great products. Although it's kind of funny, the one that like Allison has actually has a backlit screen. Like they went through the effort to put a backlight on it. So I mean, these things
Okay.
are getting a little better, I guess,
Okay.
in some form. Yeah. Now, last thing I wanted to hit on is we've talked about like the hardware itself, like that plays your existing cartridges, and sometimes it's just built-in games, but we did touch on there are a lot of companies that are making peripherals and accessories like controllers mainly for existing consoles in that fashion. Hyperkin does a lot of this with like their Super Nintendo, their Genesis style stuff, so like you can basically use these controllers as if they were controllers from those old consoles in case you can't get like the original manufacturer stuff. Landon's got an 8-bit do controller.
You got it for
There.
me.
I got that for him. I didn't
Yeah.
want to take credit, but yes, that is now technically that is for the Switch and it's Bluetooth, but it is also meant to be Game Boy style, and also can pair with a bunch of different things. You can play it on Android phone. You can play it on any Android device really. You can sync it up to your computer. So like you've got a bunch of different options like that. 8BitDo has a lot of controllers. In those styles, they have controllers in the style of Xbox and PlayStation. They have some like really like mini controllers that like I can't remember what they call them, but it's literally just the D-pad, some shoulder buttons, and and the ABXY face buttons on this like tiny little brick, and it's mostly meant as like a way to like have a really easily portable controller to take with you. One of my coworkers has one of those because he has a Switch Lite, and he's all about like portable handheld gaming. So like he has this little tiny ass like 8BitDo controller. I thought that was pretty sick. But yeah, Hyperkin does those. 8BitDo is also doing the controller for the Analog 3D that you can that's going to be coming up, by the way. So like they have an N64 controller, but it is it's like made to be faithful to the N64's actual controllers, like this control stick and everything else, but it'll be a new controller, so it's going to be really cool to see that. And I mean, it should go without saying, this is more an official one, but Jack, how many fucking GameCube controllers did Nintendo make after the GameCube was long since relevant because they were just supporting it for Smash Brothers? Like, a lot.
They made a lot. Yeah. They made a lot. And you know what? I'm glad they did. Because there were just so many, like, you know those, like, third-party, first-party controllers out there that a lot of, like, secondhand game stores sell? Like, that look and feel exactly like first-party controllers, but, like, the buttons and sticks, you can tell they're, like, really cheaply made and not first-party.
Yeah. You have, like, a lot of, like, knockoff GameCube controllers specifically where, like, it looks like a GameCube controller, but it doesn't have the Nintendo branding on it. And that is, like, one of the only signifiers that you can tell that is not the real thing. And then if, like, you get it in your hands, you can feel it. But at a glance, it's like, oh, that's a GameCube controller. It's like, it's kinda.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm glad that Nintendo actually went out of their way to make some more GameCube controllers because it made it a lot easier to find new ones.
And their GameCube controllers that they came out with after the fact, they're still, like, top of the line, like, just like the original.
Oh, yeah.
They were on top of that shit.
Mm-hmm. It feels like a brand new, like, GameCube controller. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it is, but... yeah.
Oh, I thought Landon was going to say something.
I can if you'd like.
I would like you to say something.
I believe it's the Tribute 64. I was looking at some different controllers, but there was a 64 controller a friend gifted me that is it doesn't do like the 3-prong, it's a 2-prong.
I see what you're talking about. That was one that I really liked the idea of. It's there's a lot of N64 aftermarket controllers doing that sort of thing too. Especially because, like, if you are in the retro like biz, most original 64 controllers are trashed at this point because a lot of people played the Mario parties and just destroyed the sticks on them. It also doesn't help that the N64 controllers, because of how the mechanism works, it's just prone to wear over time. So like they're just not gonna last. Mine still work because you take care of your stuff. Well, also I don't know the last time I played on it. So like Allison has 2 N64 controllers and both of the sticks on them are like just kind of flailing around. Like you could just wiggle the controller and it's just gonna like jitter around. So, but yeah, there's a lot of like 64 aftermarket stuff, and some of it's decent quality. The one he got, I think it's Tribute 64. I'd have to go downstairs or go find it. So I have a picture brought up of it. Is it this guy? See, that's what I'm looking at, and I'd have to go get it. To double check. I like the controllers that are like that. I mean, it is weird that the D-pad's like in the middle, but like, what are you gonna do? You have to have something. I think because I was also looking. There's Hyperkin has one that looks really nice, and then Brawler 64 has one that also. I remember the Brawler 64. That shit is clean. I love the Brawler 64 controller. There's some good looking ones. You know what?
I'm gonna go find it or attempt to find it. You guys have fun doing whatever it is you do for the rest of this.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's just to kind of wrap up the main discussion, and by the time we do that, Landon should hopefully be back to kind of like throw this in at the end. Just there's, as you can plainly see by this like 2-hour runtime so far, just about, there is actually a huge booming market for aftermarket hardware where you can play old games on new hardware so that you can keep your games lasting longer and being able to revisit them, which is a big deal for a lot of people. And there's also quite a few companies making decent or even good quality controllers to play those games. So the retro market really is starting to look pretty good. You do have to sift through some weird stuff like at games once in a while, and those handhelds with the built-in bootlegs like I mentioned existing out there. But there is a lot of better quality stuff that we've seen that we didn't see originally. And now, like Landon had mentioned way back earlier in the podcast, because the patents for a lot of the consoles have been slowly wearing out, it's been easier to get really good quality aftermarket hardware because now companies can just fucking make whatever as long as it's not too recent. So, really good, lots of options. Jack, you pointed out quite a few cool things that I had forgotten to mention, like Jack specific plugins. Like that's kind of a classic I'm sure a lot of people have experience with that I don't quite have as much experience with. Landon mentioned some cool stuff. He brought up the Game Gear Mini, which I'm glad he did because I would have forgotten about it. So now this is being recorded a whole month in advance, so by the time this podcast goes out, there will probably be a lot for us to talk about the next podcast after this. But
yeah,
why don't we do a little bit of catching up, because we didn't get to do that in the previous episode that we had done as the time of this recording, and we will not have a catch up like this, quite like this, in the episode that's going to be out before this one. We will talk a little bit about our Christmas stuff, but we're not going to talk about our general stuff that we've been doing. So what you been up to, Jack?
Well, it's going to be outdated by the time this podcast goes up because we're recording this over a month in advance. But lately it's been a lot of work and just dealing with the Christmas season and all the people.
Was there something that you want to share that you didn't get the chance to in the previous episode we did live?
Yeah, actually, the only thing of note that I did recently was one of my favorite emo bands right now, a band called Saturdays at Your Place from Michigan. They did a special like holiday show in Detroit it was like 2 weeks ago. And I went up for that, and it was a blast, and I ended up, just staying the weekend with my friends up there. That was really the only like major thing I've done recently. I guess that's about it. I guess I finally introduced Bethany to my parents pretty recently.
Oh wow, this just happened recently.
It took me that long. I know we've been together for quite a while, but
to be fair,
I
think my mom has only met my girlfriend once, and that was the time that I had to go to the hospital because I was having like a panic attack from too much stimulation. So.
Right. But no, it took us a while, but it's also a matter of like scheduling conflicts. Like we're really busy and my parents are really busy, so it was just like finding the time to do it. Right. That's about it though. I haven't aside from work, I really haven't been up to too much lately.
I'm trying to remember because there was supposed to be a quick talk about this last week that we had at the time of this recording. Again, I'm trying to think. I have been playing more Final Fantasy VIII. That's been interesting. There are things about the game that I like, and there's things about the game that I don't like. But I'll probably talk a little bit more about it when I get further into the game. I don't remember if I mentioned it, and I will save. I got a couple gifts from Jack and Landon. I'll talk about those in the by the time this goes out, you'll have heard about that. I'm going to save that stuff for that, so I'm not going to be mentioning it here. I've been watching quite a bit of anime. As of the time of us doing this episode, I'm pretty much all caught up on Don to Don. That's like the major new anime I've been watching.
I've been meaning to get around to that.
It's so good. I love it. The only
oh hell yeah, Shenron penis.
We got the Shenron.
So this was Jack specific.
Oh wow.
This was a Jack specific garbage, and it's not. There's no name on here, but it looks like the Tribute 64.
It might be a newer version where they repositioned stuff.
But, well, it just doesn't have the name up to the top where they...
Gotcha.
And it doesn't say anything on the back. But, yeah, it's a 64 controller. It has the original port and everything. Nice. It's meant to be played with a 64. I think it's meant for fighting games because it has, the layout on it is more designed for that. But...
It has all your buttons.
It does. So. It feels pretty nice. All right, sorry. Nice. Continue.
But yeah, I've been playing Final Fantasy VIII. What else have I been doing? It's a lot of the stuff that I've been doing is kind of stuff that I'll be talking about in the one that's going to be coming out before this one, but we're going to be recording it after, so we haven't talked about a major thing that I got to go do. You'll have heard about it in the previous episode, but I got to watch the Sonic movie, so that was cool.
Neat.
Watched it literally the first showing at my theater. They had a Thursday airing at 7 p.m. for general admission, and for some reason they had a 9:30 that was not general admission. That was the reserved one. Reserve seating. I don't know why.
Weird.
But I went to the general admission one. What else have I been doing? Oh, I've been streaming Super Mario 64.
Yeah, they heard about that.
Yeah.
I mentioned all of the stream games.
But
I also mentioned you probably have beaten it by the time
by the time it goes out, I should have beaten it because I've been making good progress. I will say, it on 3D All-Stars, it controls better than I was expecting it to, but it is definitely a learning curve. When I was first picking it up and playing, I was like, I have no idea how to control Mario. He is slippery, he is sliding everywhere, and I am not jumping around like I wish I did. Granted, I'm still no pro at it, but I'm getting the hang of it a lot better, and it feels pretty good to play, so I'm actually getting use out of my 3D All-Stars copy. I haven't touched it until recently, so
wow,
that's
that
good.
$200 game.
Is that what it's going for now?
I don't know, probably. I mean,
okay,
I'll go check.
I was gonna say I haven't checked because I have no intention of selling it. I just wanted it because it's 3 classic Mario 3D platformers, and that's how I have them. So, speaking of collecting, I have been on a quest to collect all of the physically released in North America Pokemon games, spin-offs and all. By the time this goes out, I might have most of them, but as of this recording, I am short a handful of Switch games, 1 3DS game, and most of the Game Boy games because the Gen 1 and Gen 2 games are pretty hard to get a good deal on. And I'm not trying to spend too much on any individual one. Crystal is $150.
Jesus.
That's the low end. It is up there with the other games.
There's a really cool seller on eBay who is selling. It's labeled Super Mario 3D All-Stars - Nintendo Switch, but it is a magnet from Asia. And the first image they use is a JPEG of the game case. It's $20, so they're just trying to get someone. So there you go.
Yep.
You
definitely.
can go buy Super Mario 3D All-Stars for $20 on eBay.
Quote unquote. I really am forgetting like what else I've been doing. I mean, it's a lot of just general stuff like trying to, play more of the games that I've been trying to get around to and so on and so forth. So like, I'll try and mention the big stuff that's more interesting in another episode when I remember. So yeah, that's about it.
It's like I'm seeing listings for 75 to like over 100, a little bit over 100.
That
like
is about what I was expecting.
Yeah,
I knew they were gonna
200 for fun.
I knew they were gonna be like more than a full retail game at this point because the people want the game. But yeah. But Landon, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I have been doing nothing but, been playing Balatro on the Nintendo Switch.
Family of systems.
Yes, the Nintendo Switch family of entertainment systems. I took I was like, oh, cool, in Animal Well one day. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take a quick break and I just want to try Balatro. That way I have that ready for when we do our year in review for 2024. And I have not been able to stop playing Balatro, except for the stream of Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, where I start off by playing Balatro. So, we're doing real good. I think I've beaten... So the way it's set up is you go through what they call antes. So you have like small blind, big blind, and then your boss blind. And beating a run is clearing eight boss blinds, basically.
Okay.
So clearing 8 antes, which is in some ways not easy. You get your choice of deck. You unlock different decks that give you different stuff. So right before we recorded this, I beat it with the yellow deck, which gives you an extra $10 to start off with. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun. So I'm up to 5 decks that I've cleared the game with. 3 of those I've done with an extra challenge on top, where if you take on the small blind, it gives you no money. But you can also skip big blinds for other bonuses. So it evens out. So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with that. Prior to that, I beat Ys 10 Nordics and Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3. So I cleared a bunch of
Dragon
Kong. Oh man, imagine a Donkey Kong game that is like a Dragon Quest RPG.
Donkey Kong came,
and he gave us some shit.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I don't know. That's it. That's all I had. All right.
Okay.
So that's it. We're gonna roll the outro, and we'll catch you guys when we go back to live episodes on Twitch in February. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the GamingStooges Talks podcast. If you enjoyed us, consider subscribing to our podcast RSS feed, or follow us on youtube.com/GamingStooges and twitch.tv/GamingStooges for more gaming content. If you'd like to chat with us, join our Discord. The link can be found in the episode description. We also want to thank all of our Patreon supporters. Your continued support means a lot to us. Not already one? Please take a look at what we have to offer anyone who becomes a patron at patreon.com/GamingStooges. See you next time.